finished 80 lakhs sooner than we expected. And then we were back to square one saying that, how do we really now raise more money? Because we are now into it, we have to do it. So I think I was pretty confident. Anup was also confident that we can sell this product. There was a market. There was no Indian company. There were two global companies, and they were very expensive, and they had no reach in India. Hi guys, this is Kapil Bardeja. I'm a founder and CEO of Vehant Technologies.
Kapil, welcome to the Founder Thesis podcast. I want to learn how you became an entrepreneur, and you were a very, very young entrepreneur. So, can you connect the dots and tell me how that happened?
So I belong to a business family. My father was actually in the auto parts business, and right from sixth
Like
standard
a
or seventh
trader.
standard, I was at.
He
Sorry.
was a trader. Was he a trader?
No, no. So both manufacturer and trading. So we had. So there was something called a ambassador Fiat cars, if you recall, in the 70s, 80s. So he was manufacturing the horn ring assembly and electrical wiring harness for those cars. And then we also had a shop in Kashmiri Gate, which was the auto hub, and we had three factories across Delhi. So initial days of entrepreneurship were funny because right from sixth, seventh standard, I was going to this manufacturing setup as well as the shop we had. So the smell of money was exciting from the beginning, and those were the initial days when you actually start to learn. How do you make money? How do you buy things, make them, sell them. So those were the initial, I would say, seeding points of entrepreneurship. Uh, as I kind of moved on, graduated, studies became critical, and then but I was always clear that I had to start something of my own. So
So, you joined IIT Delhi, which at that time there were much fewer IITs and it was a much bigger deal. You didn't want to sit for placements after that, or like what happened once you.
so actually, I'm an MBA from IIT Delhi, just to kind
Okay.
of clarify.
Hmm.
So my co-founder actually is a computer science graduate from IIT Delhi, so BTech MTech from IIT. So that's a funny story, and I'm actually a bachelor in pharmaceutical sciences because my initial plan was to start something in the pharmaceutical manufacturing. Got excited about medicine and stuff, but then got into IIT for a postgraduate MBA program in IIT Delhi. That kind of opened up the technology horizon, so to say, that IT and stuff was picking up. This is 2003 I'm talking to. IIT started the incubation program in 2002. So IIT was the second incubator. IIT Delhi, IIT Bombay was the first incubator, and there was a group of 12 people in computer science department, seven BTech MTech. There's a dual degree program in IIT Delhi. There still is, and there are five professors who wanted to start a company. So, and I was doing my MBA at that time. So they reached out to the management department to kind of to one of my guides, Professor Mamaya, to kind of teach this fresh graduates how to do a business, like how to do pricing, costing, all that. So I got in touch with this group when I was in IIT. So that's how we kind of met. Uh, Now I actually run Vehant with one of those founders. That's another story. We kind of spun off the business. So the initial company which was started was Critical Solutions Private Limited, way back in 2001, 2002, and
When did
then
you graduate
I
from
graduated
IIT?
in 2003.
Okay.
So when
So,
Critical was getting founded, I was still studying, and these guys graduated in 2002. The computer science guys.
okay.
I actually had a small stint in McKinsey for 9 months, but the plan was that I will join their business once the initial dust is settled, and they'll figure out the structure and stuff. So I had some time in between, and I joined McKinsey for about 9 months, and then I kind of came back and joined the team as the business guy, so to say, right?
And you
Uh,
joined with like a founder equity kind of a thing, or as an
yeah,
early
yeah,
employee?
yeah. No,
Founder
I
equity.
had a founder equity. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
So
So you were the business guy and the others, but 12 founders, you said?
yeah, yeah. So it
That
was a huge
sounds
lot. Yeah,
incredibly unwieldy.
yeah,
Like the
yeah.
probability of success for a company with 12 founders is like minuscule, right?
There are pros and cons. So there were seven full-time guys and five professors, right? And I was the eighth one. So the challenge was essentially decision making was very difficult because when 13 people sat on a table and everybody had equal say, you can't make a decision, right? But nevertheless, I think things were aligned, and Critical Solutions started working as a R&D design house for various businesses. So essentially, we could not agree on a product, and we said, okay, let's do services till the time we figure out a product. We did that for 2 years. We reached out
What
to
kind of
defense.
services? As a defense
So we were doing a lot of the core area of
hardware.
expertise was no computer vision. That was one area of expertise, which is essentially now which is AI ML morphed into that. It was called computer vision at that time, and then embedded design. So a lot of things on the embedded side, building these electronic boards, putting software in that. So we did a lot of exciting projects for defense, for private companies who were selling in defense.
So
Uh,
embedded design would be, for example, I remember that these traffic policemen had started carrying a device on which they could issue a challan on the spot, and this was probably an internet connected handheld device for issuing challan. So that's an example of embedded system.
Yeah, so that's not exactly what we did, but we actually built a metering box. So there was a box we built with a processor, printer, TFT screen, a wireless, where people would carry that to a electricity meter, and then take a picture of the meter and also print a bill there. Now we have these remote monitoring things, but at that time people had to carry these boxes. So this box can essentially be used for police challaning also.
Hmm.
But that was a box we actually built for a company who
Okay.
was into that electricity metering business, so to say. Right?
Okay. Okay.
So
Today,
those
this business is
were
largely like captured by China, right? I guess most of such devices come from China only. Nobody makes
uh,
this in India.
no, there are people who are making them in India, but the bulk of them still come from China because the scales are different. So economies are there, but there are companies who actually design and build these boxes in India.
Okay, got it. Hmm.
So yeah, so 12 people, services business. We also got a project from the Ministry of Information Technology, which was DIT at that time, Department of Information Technology, to build a under vehicle scanning system. So this started from the Parliament attack in 2001. Parliament kind of upgraded their security, spent about 100 crores at that time in various gadgets, and there were two under vehicle scanning systems which were imported from UK, each costing about a crore. Uh, so it was, and the Parliament security at that time was essentially an IIT Delhi graduate, an IPS officer, but from IIT Delhi. He came to one of our professors and said, it looks like a very simple product, but somehow it's very expensive, and we need more of these because we have a lot of gates. So can we build this in India? So that was the problem statement he gave. So the same time we were actually kind of looking for projects. So we went to the parliament. We saw the system. It looked like a fairly simple system using cameras, and that was an expertise we had. Computer vision, essentially playing around with cameras, building mosaics, finding patterns out of images and stuff. So under vehicle scanner was exactly the same product. We got some funding from DIT. Actually, IIT Delhi got a funding, and part of that came to the company as a project, so to say, to kind of essentially develop the interface. Mechanical somebody else did, and we kind of integrated that project. So product was developed, the proto was developed, and we demonstrated that to security agencies. And then it clicked to me and one of the co-founders, Anup, who is now my co-founder in Vehant, that this could be a product we can actually commercialize. We can take it to the market and actually build a company around it, and then add more security products. Um, but as usual, 12 people decision making was difficult, so nobody wanted to take the risk because the services business was doing okay. We were generating about 2 crores of revenue, reasonably good for a startup at that time,
Yes,
and profitable.
absolutely.
So we kind of took the bullet and bit the bullet and said we're going to start a company and commercialize end vehicle scanning system. So we spun off Vihan Technologies from the parent, which is Critical Solutions, to essentially focus on building, design, developing, selling products. Under vehicle scanner IP is what we took from the parent and started Vehant as a company. So under vehicle scanner is actually our first product.
And how was the equity of it worked out? Like, how much equity did the two of you get? How much was with Critical?
So Critical got, it's a long story, but currently they have 23% equity in lieu of the IP they transferred. We also required money to develop the product further because what we developed was a proto. It had to be ruggedized and stuff. So we got an angel investor. The investor was the same person. We developed another device for him for car security. So he liked us, and we thought it's a great idea, and the company can do well. So he kind of funded us. So the angel investor holds about 27% equity now. Uh,
Wow.
he gave us 80
That's
lakhs, 40 lakhs equity, 40 lakhs soft loan. So that was the
okay.
first raise we had of 80 lakhs. This is 2003 I'm referring to.
Hmm.
So that's how we started, and the balance equity is between me and Anup. And now about 10 key members of the firm hold about 10% equity.
Okay. Okay. Uh, this like probably Critical would have had more equity earlier on, and you would have bought them out over time, or something like that would have happened.
Yeah, so
As
we had an arrangement of a milestone based kind of movement. So, yeah.
okay. I'm really astonished at how maturely this was handled. Something like this, I mean, there are so many chances of entering into a bad deal which you later on regret, and the bad deal causes things to not really scale too much. But it looks like there was a lot of foresight in how you structured it.
Uh, it was a challenge. I mean, getting 13 people to agree on a structure, even spinning off a company, taking a technology.
Right.
But I think people who mature and they understood. Uh, so the critical solution wanted to focus it on services. So product was not something they wanted to do at that time. So it was easier from that perspective that we don't want to do product. When you want to take the risk, you can take it. And so that way it was done well, but it took some time, almost 6 months of convincing discussions to kind of really figure out the structure. So yeah, but yeah, it finally happened. So
Okay. So, what next? You are now starting, you have IP, you have 80 lakhs in the bank, but you don't have any customers. You don't have a like an MVP, like a minimum viable product yet. Tell me the journey from here. And this
so
is 2005, I assume.
this 2005. So we started
Okay.
Vehant in 2005 with 80 lakhs in the bank, as you said, and the IP, and me and Anup, right? So two people. So we started building the team because we knew this product was a prototype at best, but it's not a ruggedized, validated product. So we started validating it. Eventually, ending up changing the whole technology altogether. Right? It took us almost 2 years. We finished 80 lakhs sooner than we expected, and then we were back to square one, saying that how do we really now raise more money because we are now into it. We have to do it. So how do we raise more money?
What was the spend on? Like, what did you spend that 80 lakhs on?
So it was essentially on, we had to redo the structure, we had to redo the algorithms. We actually changed the whole technology narrative from an area scan system. We were using a four camera systems to check the underside to a single camera line scan system, which was, I would say, more uh, ruggedized and more repeatable in terms of detection, right? So,
Okay.
so we actually
So
ended
the
up changing the technology altogether, right?
the earlier
Of
system would have
product.
been entire car in one go. Now it is that as the car is crossing the camera, it's like how photocopy happens, like the line on the page, something like
Yeah,
that.
so the mechanism was similar in the proto also, but we were using something called area scan cameras, which basically meant that, and the area scan camera technology was not very evolved at that time. We used to get PAL cameras, which is 760 resolution. Now we have 2 megapixel, 5 meg. So these are essentially 760 across, 640 resolution cameras. So it was analog cameras at that time. I'm talking, 17 years back. The IP cameras were not that famous. So that was one of the challenges because the speed of the vehicle the system could attend was only 7 to 10 kilometers per hour, which means the vehicle has to slow down, really go slow on the scanner. But the customer wanted more, faster kind of system. They don't have to stop the car can just pass, and then we should be able to generate the mosaic of the underside and then do some pattern recognition. So we realized that this camera would take some time because the camera technology hadn't evolved at that time. So we actually moved to something called a line scan camera system, which was actually a photocopier, as you said,
Okay.
where it does not bother about the car. It essentially, as the car moves, it essentially scans line by line information and then kind of places them together to form a mosaic of the underside. So the mosaic formation was essentially a camera feature, so to say. It was not the software which was doing it, as in the case of the area scan cameras which we were using.
Okay.
Interestingly, 12 years back, we developed the same system, but now with better area scan cameras, which is a Gen 3 system. So, fast forward that.
Hmm.
So, we
Okay.
developed that line scan technology. Hence, it took more time because we had to redo the whole technology stack, finish the money. So we went to TDB, Technology Development Board, at that time, and we wanted to raise some money. And then there was a ICICI spread program at that time, which they had some World Bank money which they could give at 5% or 6% loan. So we actually raised two more crores from these two loans. So 5% loan from TDB and 6% loan from ICICI spread. And that's how we finished the under vehicle scanner. So 80 lakh was not sufficient. We actually ended up spending 3 crores to essentially come out with a minimal viable product which the customers could buy. Uh,
A lot of people at this stage would have given up instead of taking a loan, because we're talking of like in an era where debt was a bad word, right? I mean, my parents never would have bought anything on EMI simply because for them debt was a bad word. Why were you so confident that you can take a loan, take on debt, and still manage to pay it back without getting bankrupt and with the bank behind you? You know, the nightmare scenario that you're in debt and no way to pay it back and all.
So I think I was pretty confident. Anup was also confident that we can sell this product. There was a market. There was no Indian company. There were two global companies, and they were very expensive, and they had no reach in India. When we did a business case for this product as such, we added up, multiple high security installations like, Parliament, President's House, Chief Minister's residence, Supreme Courts, chemical plants, power plants, all that, who would essentially need a system, and they were using a mirror to check the underside. So there was a
Yeah, I
need to
remember
check
that.
the
There
underside.
was
Yeah. So
a
the
wheel
whole concept
mirror.
was there. You wanted to check the underside, but you wanted a technology or system which could help you do it more reliably. So I think we were confident that the product would sell. It's essentially a product problem, and once we developed the product, we were confident that we'll be able to sell it. We got some initial sales. Actually, even the proto we were able to sell to Bangalore Chief Minister's residence. It took 3 months
Okay.
to stabilize the product, but finally it was working. And for last 18 years, we have changed it twice into Gen 2, Gen 3, and it is still there. So as a under vehicle scanner. So we were confident that we would be able to pay back the money. And I mean, we had a passion. I mean, we wanted to do it. So come whatever may. So
When did it reach the stage where it was ready for commercialization? So 2007, you took another 2 crores. After that, how much longer did it take?
So 2008 was something where it was ready to sell. Uh, and that's where we started, I would say, commercial sales of the product. So 2.5 years from the starting point.
And uh, this, like, for an outsider, selling something to the government just seems like you don't even know where to start. Like, if I was selling something to the private sector, I know that I will go on LinkedIn, find people, send them a cold email, go to events, meet people at events. But how do you do government sales? How did you do your initial sales? And
So I think first thing we realized was that both of us had very limited expertise in that area. So the fifth person we hired was actually a senior salesperson. Sudham Mukherjee is still with us. He's one of the directors in the company. So he had 22 years of experience with HCL and L&T and T and stuff, and he was good in government sales. So September 2005, he joined us, I recall. And I think he has been taking the sales mantle since then. Of course, we've
how
added
did
multiple
he?
products.
How did you convince him? Like a bunch of 20-year-olds telling a 45-year-old guy to come and work for them.
I mean, we had 4 or 5 interactions. So we had a small office because we moved out of IIT incubation program, and then we came to Noida in Sector 2. We had a small office on the backside. There was a generator place people used to have. So this guy converted that into an office space of 20 people and gave it to us. 50,000 rupees was the rent, if I recall correctly. So he came to that place. He was in HCL, of course, head of the AMD line of business. So his initial reaction was, "Where am I? What am I doing here?" I think over subsequent conversations, we were able to convince him about the long-term vision. Uh, I mean, we have to ask him whether he made a mistake or not, but I think he did well. So that we
Okay.
realized our weaknesses. That's very important for any entrepreneurs to look at. Know what you're good at, and then go find experts in other areas. If you try to learn that expertise, it will take more time. You will learn that expertise eventually because as you go through the journey, but initially you need to really find experts of something you don't know. So yeah.
Okay, okay. So he helped you to start getting sales. What did what like first few years? What kind of deals did you do that you recall?
It was a very slow adoption because we were essentially changing a 5,000 rupee mirror to a 20 lakh rupee device. So there was a huge leap of faith the customer had to take to essentially see value in that product. Uh, we In 2007 we sold 5 units, if I recall correctly. 2008 we sold about 15 units. Each unit is about 20 lakhs. So to give you a sense of the revenue. But we were clear this is not the product we. That's the only product we want to build. We want to move ahead and add new products and technologies. Uh, we added one product after the other, but the minimum viable sales started coming after 2008 onwards.
And what kind of sales were you doing by 2010? Say, what kind of annual revenue were you at?
So we were doing close to about 10 crores, 12 crores by that time. We had by 2010 we had actually added one more product in the kitty, which was also an extension of under vehicle scanner. So we essentially, so you have the underside of the car, but we were putting a camera to take a number plate and a camera to take a driver snapshot to make it a complete solution. Now, a lot of customers said that the frontal plate they have to digitize because we give them a picture and then they have to type the number. So we said, yeah, it's a fairly simple optical character recognition technology. It's globally available. We took a license from a company in Germany and Hungary, and we tested that on Indian plates. Accuracy was 20% of detection. So we sent it back to the OEM saying that is the number plate reader is not working. What do we do? So they told us to send us some samples, and they were like all funny handwritten plates with Jai Mata Di on top of that and stuff. They said, our engines don't work like that. You need to have
Right.
standard characters and stuff. I said, we don't have standard plates. So he said, I'm sorry, we can't work. So we ended up developing an OCR engine uh,
Mm.
for reading the car plates. Now, and then we started selling that as an add-on to the system. So we sold a couple of scanners to Rajasthan Police, and one of the SP who then became SP Traffic came to us and said, can you use the number plate reader to track the vehicles going in and out of the city, Jaipur city? And we said, yeah, it looks like a simple concept. Same camera, we have to just put it and ensure that it works on high speed because the vehicles are higher speeds than on a entry of a premise. So we deployed. We got an order from him for deploying 20 lanes of only number plate reading systems for the city of Jaipur when they're still operational by the way. So that was a good revenue. We sold there was a 50 lakh order for 20 lanes, but we had to do the hardware, poles and lights and everything. So we learned all that. But then eventually that morphed into a new business. We called it Wahi Scan as a product category. And we started selling that to various state police for monitoring of vehicles going in and out of city, where you have a local detection and the data goes centrally. So something, let's say if it's a stolen car, you feed that number centrally, and then it'll give you a pop-up whenever any camera sees the car at any of the junctions. So that became our second product, so to say. So by 2010, we were also selling voice scan.
Okay, amazing. Uh, where is the camera typically mounted for reading the number plate? Is it up on top, like there is typically like there's a pole on top of the road? Is it there, or is it on some corner on the side pointing towards the road?
So both configurations are possible depending on the width of the lane. If it's a two-lane road, then a side pole is good enough because any structure which you take up has to be then 6 meters and above. If it's that's a NHA standard for or the safety standard because the ambulances and other things have to pass through. So, but if it's a three-lane road, then you have to have either a cantilever structure which is at least 6 meters or a gantry which covers the whole side of the lane. So all three configurations are possible. You have a side pole, you have a cantilever structure, and you have a gantry structure.
A cantilever means it just goes up to the middle. It doesn't
Yeah,
go
it
down
does
to the
not
other
cross to
side.
the whole lane, but it has to be at least 6 meters cantilever.
Got it.
So it does not
Got it.
hit the vehicle going below.
Hmm. Okay. 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 And so all of this sounds like a lot of relationship building happened because for like the police departments to come to you and tell you that can you do this and all, what was powering these relationships?
So I think once you start working with, let's say, police or even defense, for example, they have a lot of problems they want people to solve. And this era was when only foreign companies had technology, and foreign companies don't modify their products and solutions to meet your small requirement, right? So that was a constant challenge for these companies also. So I think we were able to somehow convince them that we are there for their solutions, and we were also hungry for getting ideas because we wanted to build a product. But our thought was always that, sniff the market, what they require, let's build that. It's available globally, but it's not suited for the Indian conditions. So I think the whole thought was to actually build technologies and products which the customer wanted, not available in India. Foreign players are not willing to do any changes. So that's the product we kind of entered, and that's how our third product happened, which was X-ray baggage scanner machines. So we actually were the first X-ray baggage scanner manufacturer in the country for single-use systems, which was essentially one generator, one detector array. So you get a bottom view of the bag. So that was the initial technology, and still that is being mass deployed across. If you go to hotels or railway stations and stuff, they still use single-view scanners. So it's actually those state police who actually told us that this is an X-ray technology. We buy it from foreign companies. They're very expensive. Then for changing the conveyor belt, they charge 60,000 rupees, which we know it's a 10,000 rupee belt, but they charge 60, and we don't have a choice. So we started developing X-ray baggage machines. Uh, this was way back in 2012. We sold our first X-ray baggage machine. Again, we had entered the police, high security market with under vehicle scanners, so X-ray became a logical choice. We later diversified to hotels, IT companies, private complexes also. They also bought under vehicle scanners. So TCS, Cognizant, HCL also had our under vehicle scanning systems. Marriott Hotel, ITC had our under vehicle scanning systems, and then eventually we sold the same product. So the idea was to only look at products which this customers would require, reduce our say, cost of sales. We have a sales guy going there with an under vehicle scanner catalog, can go with an X-ray. They need an X-ray. But it was a leap of faith in terms of developing the technology because we were not expert on X-ray. This was more physics. We had to first understand the physics of it, and then eventually, when it came to imaging, we knew what to do. So that's how we built the X-ray. Move that single view to dual view X-ray baggage scanners, which were aviation related products. Aviation has higher standards of X-ray. So Bureau of
What is the
Civil
difference
Aviation.
between single view,
So
dual view?
single view has one generator, one detector array. So you get a bottom view of the bag. Aviation necessitates a dual view system where you have two generators and two detectors. So you get a better imaging and better detection because you are looking at the bag, let's say from the side view and the bottom view. Eventually, we will move to a computer tomography system, which we are also now developing. The country will move to that. The Western world has already moved to a CT scanner, but we are still at the dual view phase, which I think is a graduation. We will do that as a
So
country.
CT scanner is like 360-degree.
Yeah. So CT
Okay.
will actually take a complete 360-degree view of the back, like a medical CT, and it will be more reliable. We'll have more data points for the algorithms to detect explosives or objects in the bags which are harmful.
Mm. And who was leading technology? Like Anup was like the technology head, or like how did you? Because all of these are like hard tech problems.
Yeah. So Anup is the tech guy. I do everything which is non-tech. I mean, you end up learning a lot about products, but Anup actually leads all the technology initiatives. Uh,
Mm.
Very very keen learner because moving from computer vision, camera imaging to X-ray imaging, radar technologies. Now we're moving to radio imaging also. By the way, so we're developing scanners for detection of. So you see these in US and Europe, you have these body scanners where you have to stand like this or stand like that, and they essentially have millimeter wave technology, which is not penetrating technology because you can't penetrate a human every time through an X-ray. It's kind of regulated. For baggages, you can do. The bags you can scan through X-ray. So we are also developing millimeter wave scanners for the aviation application. Uh, After you generate the image, it's a similar computer vision AI/ML problem, but then to generate that image, you have to solve a lot of physics and electronics problem, which we kind of learned, and we were always curious to learn new things. So we developed these products one after the other.
Mm. When did you launch the baggage scanner?
So baggage scanner was 2012, if I recall correctly. Our first scanner was sold,
Mm.
single view scanner.
And when did you diversify into the private market, like hotels and IT parks?
So with UVSS, we started moving into private in 2009-10, where we actually cracked TCS as a customer
UVSS is under vehicle
under vehicle
scanner.
scanning system. Yeah, so that was the first. So we entered everywhere with under vehicle scanning system, and then kind of topped it up with an X-ray machine, because these were all required for checking the car or checking the bag.
Okay, okay, okay. So, as on date, what all? So, like 12, you launched the baggage scanner. After that, any additional launches, or like just
Yeah, yeah. So
generated
we
to
have
get?
complete. Now we are kind of into. So one thing I skipped was the number plate reading system actually morphed into a new business segment of not just monitoring the vehicles. So again, we listened to the police and said, if you have a number plate reading system, can't you detect a violation? Can you detect an overspeeding, a red light jump, no helmet, triple riding? So we actually morphed the number plate reading system voice scan product into something called Traffic Mall. That's a category of products we have for traffic violation detection, which was essentially speed detection, number plate, red light, stop vehicle, no, parking violation, all that. Here also, it's a funny story because when these customers started asking for speed violation, and we said, it's a globally solved problem. Western world already has speed scanners for last 25 years. Went to a German company, took a radar, and he said, we're going to take a radar, detect the speed with the radar, and we have a number plate reader anyways, and then we're going to combine it because violation detection and number plate has to be generated. You detect a violation, don't have the number plate, you have no value because you can't generate a ticket. So we look at these radars and we put them in one of the junctions in Noida we had as a test junction, so to say. So the accuracy of detection was 30%. And then we asked the OEM again, said, he said, okay, send me pictures of the junction you have put up my radar. And we sent them a typical Indian junction which had three lanes, four cars, three two-wheelers in between, and two rickshaws on the backside. So there were eight vehicles in the view, so to say. And he said, what is this? This is not how the radars are developed. I said, what's the problem? I said, I can see from my eye it's different. I said, no, radar cannot do that. You need a certain level of separation. So I need three vehicle, three lanes, three vehicles. If you have, then the radar will work. Otherwise, it won't work. I said it won't work in 99% of the places in India, maybe 1%. So we brainstormed. We went back to the drawing board and said, how do we solve this problem? So, and then Anup came out with this beautiful algorithm to detect the speed of a vehicle using cameras. We did a distance upon time, so it required some calibration of the ground. So we knew the exact position of the plate. I mean, the idea was that every vehicle has a plate. So if I detect the plate anyways because of number plate reasons, but I track this plate in time and I look at the speed of the plate and then correspond that to the speed of the vehicle. So if let's say you run with a plate in front of my system, I detect your speed because I'm actually detecting the speed of this moving plate. So that was a whole concept, and then we tested that, validated that, showed it to the customer. So there were a lot of initial resistance because radars were the norms, but they were very expensive. Each system, I know Delhi bought some systems in 2008 9, $60,000 for one approach. I
Wow.
mean, it's crazy pricing at that time. And the camera-based systems were good because we use the same camera for detecting speed and the number plate. You don't need a separate camera. And this was per lane. So for three lanes, you need three such systems and combine them together in a processing unit and then send the challans to the junction. So I can very proudly say that we actually changed the whole enforcement landscape in the country. Fast forward 2024, now we have
How much did
20,000.
your system cost? You said the imported system was $60,000. What was
So
your
we were
comparable
selling at
price?
that time at $4,000.
Wow. Okay.
So there was a
And
huge difference
the
in price.
accuracy was comparable, like in terms
So
of
we were lower than
accuracy.
the radar. The radars are more accurate. But again, you need to have a situation for the radar to be accurate. If you have three lanes, three cars, radar would be almost 99% accurate. But you don't have that. So even if our systems are 80% accurate, that's good enough because you're missing 20 violators, but you're getting 80, but at 110 the price. Uh,
Right.
so the challenge was not getting a wrong violation. That was critical. Don't capture a vehicle and define that to be overspeed when he's not overspeeding. But even if you miss 20 vehicles with overspeeding, I mean, you can live with that, right? With that 110
Is that
price system. So that was a whole game. So fast forward now, we have 20,000 enforcement slash vehicle monitoring lanes running across 70 cities in India. Our competitors also followed, so they also junked the radar, started developing camera-based system. So I can proudly say almost 95% of the lanes deployed in the country, whether by us or by competitors, are camera-based enforcement systems.
and any other products that you developed in this journey?
So, traffic mon, we added a lot of modules. So, after
Hmm.
speed, red light, we added no helmet, triple riding detection. wrong way, seat belt detection, mobile while driving detection, all that we did as
Wow.
enforcement piece, so to say.
Hmm.
COVID was a game changer for us. We have three divisions now. One is security screening, which is under vehicle scanners, X-ray baggage scanners. We also developed an explosive trace detector along with a company in IIT Bombay. It's using a MEMS semiconductor technology, which we don't understand. So we actually took a technology from them and kind of added to our aviation portfolio. And we are adding millimeter wave scanners, computer tomography systems now being developed now in this division. Second division is smart city
How does
sensing.
the explosive detection happen? What is this technology?
So this is a micro electromechanical sensing technology. It's a semiconductor device. So in 2011, I saw an article from a professor called Professor Ramgopal Rao in IIT Bombay, and they claimed that developed a explosive detection sensor in the country. And we were selling to these high security areas, and explosive detection was an interest to us. So I called him up. I said, I want to meet up and give the background about Vehan. So he said, "Yeah, come on. I have just half an hour." Yeah, and then so I flew to Bombay, met him. We almost spent 4 hours together, had lunch, and then I figured out that it was a complex technology. We came from the academic background, so we know that when a professor says the technology is developed, only the concept is developed. I mean, you have to really take that to a proto and then scale technology. So they wanted to start a company. So we helped them incubate a company because we understand in Behant we don't have that expertise of working on semiconductor devices. One of his ex-students is the CTO of that company. He's a PhD in microelectronics. So that's how it happened, and then we essentially took the manufacturing for that technology because they were not experts in manufacturing. We had this factory set up, all that, so we added that, and we took the rights for selling the product in multiple countries.
Hmm. Okay, okay, okay. Got it. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. So you were saying COVID was a game changer.
Yeah, so in COVID, uh, all the airports were shut down, all the hotels were closed, IT companies were
What was
closed.
your revenue in 2020? Like around that financial year 1920, what were you at?
So pre-COVID, we were hitting 64 crores,
Okay.
and we
Okay.
projected to be 100 in next year because everything was going well, and then COVID struck. So smart cities were shut down. There was no vehicle on the road. And we sat down. The drawing board says none of our products will sell from tomorrow because nobody wants a under vehicle scanner when the building is shut down. In fact, people stopped renewing their AMC contracts also. So the AMC contracts, they said, I don't know where till the time what my hotel will be closed. It's almost a year. Even if it is open, I don't know how many people will come and stuff like that. So we looked at the suite of products and technologies which we could develop. So we developed four COVID-related products in a short span of 6 months during COVID. So from let's say March 2020, when the COVID hit, so we developed a UV tunnel, a UV disinfecting system using our existing X-ray baggage tunnels. We got in touch with a professor in IIT Bombay who was expert on the biology side of it. He told us this is the dose required, this is the UV lamp you require. So we actually retrofitted our tunnels to make a UV scanner, and we had the conveyors and everything, right? So which is the back. So we sold a couple of these tunnels, actually 100 of them, to our existing customers who started using extra machines, but they had to sanitize the bag. So if you recall, there was a lot of hue and cry with regards to the bags having some infection, and vegetables having infection, stuff like that. So we developed a UV tunnel. We even exported these UV tunnels to Philippines, Switzerland. Again, these are online queries, and we posted everything. Second was we developed so we had worked on thermal cameras for monitoring applications. So we retrofitted one of the thermal cameras to do temperature detection. So there was a challenge where we have to enter the place, your temperature should not be high. So we sold again hundreds of these cameras for temperature monitoring. So we actually did not do anything which were traditional business. We developed these new technologies in 6 months' time, launched them, sold them. We also developed for example, all these traffic systems which we sold. There was no vehicle on the road. We got a call from the Hyderabad police. There was some regulation in Telangana that if you have to move out for buying grocery, you can only go 3 kilometers. You can't go beyond that. Now, how do you monitor that? So we actually developed a small algorithm where the number plate readers we had. So we knew exactly when the vehicle is here and at that point. So whenever he was crossing 3 kilometers, we generated a ticket. So, and then we started detecting masks, whether the person is wearing a mask. So this COVID analytics, we called it, so to say, it took off. So these were four products we launched, which was UV tunnel, temperature monitoring, distance measuring systems, mask detection systems, and things. And we sold. I mean, we survived COVID. We went down in sales. 64 became 53, but we still made money. We were profitable, and we didn't lay off a single person. I mean, we didn't do hike in that year. That was the only year we didn't give any hikes, but we never laid off anybody. This quick adaptability was very, very good. The team really worked hard, all of them, and we were able to sail through the COVID period. Uh, Now, since we were developing this COVID analytics, we always wanted to get into people analytics. So we were doing vehicle analytics, which was detecting vehicle speed, monitoring, count, all that. But we never were into people analytics. When we started doing mask and people detection, so we said, let's now get for people analytics. So that's another business vertical we have started called enterprise analytics, which is essentially people analytics using cameras where you can detect patterns. So now fast forward 3 years. Over last 3 years, we have launched something called a vehicle incident detection module for highways, which detects the speed of a vehicle, wrong way, collision, slow vehicle, something, dropping off the vehicle and things like that. So it's a nine analytics suite, which NHAI is now kind of mandated for all the highways. And we have got almost 600 of these lanes deployed in five highways right now. And there is a huge plan to kind of deploy these systems. We also developed Safe City Analytics, which was actually an extension of the COVID analytics, wherein we were selling the traffic enforcement systems to the city as part of the smart city mission. But then Safe City was essentially analytics like crowd detection, crowd management, loitering, left baggage detection, somebody garbage on the road, fire and smoke detection. So all that analytics came as part of the Safe City Analytics. So we have now launched a module for Safe City Analytics almost 1.5 years back, where we got multiple cities like Jammu, Gurgaon, where we are not just selling the traffic analytics, but we are also selling the Safe City Analytics as part of that system. So that was another vertical which started. Third thing which we did was to look at industries and manufacturing, where we were already present through under vehicle scanners and X-ray, and like oil and gas installations, where we have a module which does multiple such analytics which they require for safety compliances, like whether the person is wearing a helmet or a jacket or a gloves or goggles which are required. Fire and safety again came as part of that. Crowd management. Is there a worker aggregation happening which it should not be happening? Are you going to a boiler area where you're not supposed to go? So all that analytics become an industrial analytics kind of a suite. We call it enterprise analytics. So in COVID, a new business line actually started for us. Of course, UV tunnels and thermal cameras are all gone now because nobody wants them. But the analytics stuck, and then we moved into analytics. So that's actually a third business vertical we have now started called enterprise analytics.
So, what do you do revenue wise? What will this year be at?
So last year we did about 166 crores, and we had a 22 crore profit, PAT. This year we
Amazing.
are targeting anywhere between 230 to 250 in revenue.
Okay. Okay. Like a very healthy 50% growth.
Yeah, I'll be hopeful if I'll be happy if we get 50% growth. But at least now, I mean, we won't. So last year we did 74 crores, so we almost jumped 114%. But I don't think it's a sustainable jump. So I'll be happy if we are able to get a 30-40% growth rate year on year.
Mm, okay. Uh, and so, of this revenue, how much is what is the split here? So, you said there are three business lines. There is smart city, there is enterprise analytics, and there is security screening, right? Three broad business units. So, how much does each of these contribute to the revenue?
So security screening is the major part. We get almost like 70% of our revenue from security screening. This is last year. And we get close to about 25% from smart city, safe city business. Enterprise is a new budding sector. We got 5% of the revenue last year. Going further, we believe enterprise analytics will grow. Security screening will also grow, but comparatively, enterprise analytics is more, I would say, a larger market, addressable market size, and also an export opportunity for us. So, for hardware security screening, there are a lot of barriers in the Western world for you to sell. But for software, I mean, it's all the AI ML software is all democratic, so to say, right?
The enterprise analytics doesn't include the cameras bundle because every building already has cameras. This is essentially a suite of analytics on top of the images, which is anyway being captured. Like the video stream is anyway there.
Yeah. So
So
it's
this
just
will
AI software. Yeah. There is no hardware in that.
okay, okay. So essentially, this gives a dashboard to the facilities manager to manage safety in the building and things like that.
Yeah,
Okay,
even
okay,
productivity,
interesting.
so there are some interesting use cases we are trying to develop for, let's say, a retail chain, where they want to see what is the employee loitering. How much time the guy was actually behind the sales desk and how much time is not in the sales desk. For a call center, we can monitor how much time the person was sitting on the chair and assuming he's attending calls and not there in the chair. So, I mean, there's a lot of productivity analytics you can actually build in apart from safety and security. But we entered into safety security because we had existing customer base who wanted these analytics. But going further, productivity analytics will be the focus.
And this is like an aggregate number, or can you also flag non-performers? Can you flag that this guy is generally spending half the day not on his chair?
So, anything which a person sitting on a pole of 3 meters can see and observe over a day, a camera can actually do that now. So, if you were to be hanging there for 8 hours, you can figure out the whole floor, who is sitting when, going when, talking how much, drank how many cups of tea, and it's visible to you. The camera can actually flag all that.
Amazing. Including recognizing that this is this employee.
Yeah, you can do
Like,
face. Yeah, face recognition is a fairly standard technology in controlled spaces. So
amazing. Though for that, the company will need to do a one-time scan initially at the time of installation.
yeah, yeah. So
Otherwise, how would
that's
you know who is who?
no. So you don't have to really register everyone. For example, typically in a face recognition scenario, you essentially deploy a camera at an entry lane, let an entry door of the, and you can detect all the
Okay.
faces. You don't
So
have to.
when somebody is swiping the badge,
Yeah,
you can
you take
relate
a
the badge with
picture.
the face.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So this revenue current years is all domestic, or have you also started getting export revenue?
We have a bit of export revenue, but export is just 2% of our revenue right now in all these sectors put together. We essentially export under vehicle scanners, X ray baggage machines, explosive detectors right now. But we are starting to get queries for the analytics piece. Traffic enforcement is a more complex problem because every country has different regulations and you have to pass through those certifications. So at this time, we're not focusing too much on that, but we are actually focusing on security scanners and the enterprise analytics eventually for exports.
So you said there are challenges around this exporting security hardware. This is like, say, today there are concerns in India that CCTV cameras, which are imported from China, may be sending the data back to servers in China. So it's like concerns like these because of which hardware export is tough.
No, so most of the security scanners actually have a critical role to play. So, for example, in the Western world, if you go to a hotel, you don't see an extra machine outside like in India. So, that's not the market. Primary market is aviation or maybe transport, train stations and stuff. So, there are some standards you have to match. So, there is an European civil aviation certification you have to get. In US, you have to get a TSA certification. So there is a process to that. We're actually in midst of a European certification for one of our X-ray baggage machines, but it takes time. So you need to get a slot. Uh, I'm not saying they're biased, but I don't know that. But we got a slot after 2 years of testing an X-ray machine in Europe.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
so I think these are some geopolitical challenges. They do have a soft corner for Western companies. Even airports, I know that even if I get a certification, I don't think they will just embrace us and say, let's have Indian product. They will have challenges. They will have all these questions which you're saying. Of
Despite the cost benefit, like you would probably be like half the price, or if not.
Yeah, we'll be definitely substantially cheaper than them, apple to apple. But yeah, there will be concerns, and we have to surmount those challenges. So there would be a certain entry barrier for us, not just a certification, but also a mindset change for a customer to change to a non-European product.
Okay. Essentially, these are like soft barriers, not like very hard rule-based barriers. Okay.
So both,
Interesting.
they have a certification barrier, which is a rule-based barrier. You need to have that definitely, but then there'll be soft barriers on top of that.
Mm,
So it's not going to be an
okay.
easy game.
Mm. But what about, say, Nepal, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, these kind of countries? These would be relatively easier to penetrate.
We have been selling to Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, SAARC countries. Nepal also we have a couple of installations. Um, the markets for these security scanners are not very large in these countries.
Mm.
They're open to Indian products, but Bangladesh, for example, the government tenders necessarily ask for a made in Europe, made in US product. So they have this
Okay.
bias for buying Western products. Still, in some, I would say not all, but some installations.
Got
So
it. Okay. 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 So, in your smart city, safe city solutions, over there also is facial recognition possible to actually identify who broke the law?
yeah, so we have cameras which can do face recognition in safe cities. Actually, it is required also because if I have to detect, let's say, a chain snatcher or somebody kidnapping, I need to have face recognition systems. So they are allowed as per law, even as per the IT Act, they are allowed by the government for law and order situations, and they are being deployed across cities.
How does it work? So suppose someone snatched a chain or snatched a mobile phone, and your camera has captured his face. Now what next? How do you identify the name of the face, the person behind the face, like, and further, like, in terms of helping catch him?
So there are two scenarios, two analytics which will come into play here. One is that I will try to detect a chain snatching event because the camera may be little far. You can't see the because the face cameras have to be more, I would say, closer and have a clear view of the cap of the face. But a chain snatching can be detected as an event. So essentially, moment we have a chain snatching flag, so to say, that camera kind of pops up on the control station. Now, in a control station, let's say Gurgaon or Noida, there will be like 6,000 cameras. So you can't see all of them. But whenever there is an alarm, that camera essentially gets popped up in the screen, and then you are seeing real time what's happening. Uh, and essentially, you can activate the next level of system. So I can't reveal too much, but they have SOPs in place on how do we deal with that situation. So there is a regular, let's say, a feed which will go to the nearest PCR van to act on this particular location. So they have a standard SOP for handling such cases. Let's say if there is a fire, the camera detects a fire. So there is an SOP with a command control center which gives the alarm to the fire station and to the nearest PCR van to kind of go and act on it.
Hmm. I'm kind of visualizing these TV shows in which once they capture a face of a criminal, then they run it against the database of other faces in the criminal database of FBI and so on, and then it finds who's that person, like, say, Mission Impossible kind of stuff. Does that happen? Like, can you run a face against a database and then actually identify this is the person who
Yeah.
did this?
So that's exactly what happens. They already have so police has a database of criminals, and that keeps getting modified. And the engine essentially matches against that database and gives them a possible match because they may have a picture of somebody 5 years back. The face may have modified. So you get a probabilistic match of, let's say, 5 or 10 suspects, depending on what logics you apply. So that's exactly how it happens.
Okay.
It doesn't look that
Is
fancy
this
like a picture, but that's essentially how it happens.
Okay, okay. Is this database of faces centralized, or each district or each state has their own stuff, and, like, is it decentralized?
So I would refrain from commenting on that because that's something you're not supposed to reveal.
Okay, I thought this would be public knowledge, right? Like, if there is a centralized database of criminals.
I mean, there is a database of criminals. Uh, yeah, but I think the exact methodology on how it is collected, where it is kept, is something which
Ah,
better not be
okay,
revealed.
okay, 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 okay. Fascinating. Uh, you know, compared to, say, China, how sophisticated and mature is the Indian smart city, safe city analytics, kind of like the government monitoring setups?
So I think the density of Chinese cameras is more than Indian cameras, and it's a cost equation. So you may want to put up more cameras, but every city has a certain budget. So, I mean, to cover Delhi, you require a couple of million cameras. You can't do it with 10,000 cameras they have or 20,000 they have. So you need more cameras. But again, depending on the budget.
Number of cameras in Delhi is about 10-20,000. You're saying
I
as a
don't know the
percent.
exact number of how many,
Okay.
because a lot of cameras are also bought from. So one is the police who's buying the cameras. Then there is a community surveillance program where, let's say, a hotel has 5 cameras outside. That feed also gets integrated in the command control, and so on and so forth. So you can actually multiply the number of cameras using these community surveillance cameras. So that kind of adds up to the number. But I think overall, if I understand, the density of cameras is still low in India as compared to even Western world. So London, for example, there are some studies which says that every minute you pass through 6 cameras if you are walking on
Oh
the road.
wow.
So we don't have that kind of density as yet, but I'm not sure whether it's eventually even required, but yeah, if the crime graph is still up, then you need, because these cameras essentially not just do a job of detecting a criminal, but also as a deterrence. You go to a LA, you see a camera, when you feel confident and safe, so to say, as a female or even as a male who don't want to get robbed. You feel more comfortable. So they also act as a deterrent in some sense.
Hmm. How does this community surveillance program work? Like, say, if a Oberoi or a Hilton has cameras outside, are these submitted to some national setup, or is it like a state-run setup, or
So
like is this a national
no, no,
mandate,
no, no. So
or
the local police actually gets those feeds. Now every city and state has different rules and regulations to do that. Some states have statewide command centers, but some states have citywide command centers. Because the policing is a state subject.
these command centers are what are they staffed by trained IT professionals? Like, give me a picture of what a command center looks like. What does it do?
So, if you see a command center, you would see a large video wall where you have display of cameras, and then you have a couple of benches and desks. So, there are multiple set of people who sit. One is, of course, the traffic enforcement guys who would actually verify the challans, right? So, that's one set of people. The other set of people would be IT guys to manage the hardware and the switches and the network and all. Because I mean, there's a camera down, then you have to plug it up, or a server storage. So, you have IT guys for that. Then you have
And
people.
these are like some third party payroll guys, or are they government employees?
Depends. I mean, so mostly the IT and other things are outsourced. So whosoever does a smart city project, a system integrated like L&T or Johnson Control or others, they will actually provide the services. So there is a project sale with a 5-year warranty or 5-year services period with a OPEX to it. So they will essentially deploy people for the maintenance purpose. But the active enforcement is done by the police officers only.
Hmm. Okay, so this is interesting. I didn't know there were these system integrators who were actually responsible for deploying these smart city projects. Uh, why didn't you also become a system integrator? So, from what I understand, you would sell to an L&T, but you're not a system integrator yourself. Why is that?
So actually, we see ourselves as a technology provider of certain modules used in a smart city. But if you look at a smart city project, there are 70 things you have to do. Uh,
What
so
are they? Like, give me examples of things
so
that
you
you
would
don't
have
do or you don't
smart
do in the role.
lights. You have smart lights part of
Okay.
the system. You'll have smart dustbins. You will have surveillance cameras also, not just traffic enforcement or detection, but you have normal cameras. You have to also run a lot of fiber for network, which is a large cost. You have to service storages for 5 years. I mean, so that's a cost. You have to put up poles on the road. You have to get the right of way from municipal. So it's a different skill set of a master system integrator than technology providers like us. So we essentially would give our
Hmm.
traffic enforcement piece or a safe city analytics module to one of these system integrators, and they would actually do the project management, deployment on the field, and things which is their expertise. So that's why we never thought to become a system integrator.
So the surveillance camera piece is not managed by you. Like, I guess Safe City would include the surveillance camera feed, right? Like, you would process the surveillance camera feed, or is there some other
No, so we do that,
systems
but we
also?
don't deploy the cameras. So for,
Okay.
let's say, to get the feed, what do you need? You need a pole on the road. You need cameras on the road. You need a fiber to come get the feed on the system. You need a server
Right.
which would process it. You need a storage which would store it, and then you need a retrieval system. You need a video wall. Uh, Essentially, we will, let's say, run the heart of the system, which is essentially take this feed and do the analytics. But then this peripheral things which are actually larger than the analytics in terms of cost of deployment is required to do that heart of the system.
Okay. Okay. Uh, what kind of like, say, private companies have like a CEO dashboard where the CEO is looking at some analytics about functioning of the operational functioning and operational efficiency of the company. Similar to that, you would probably also be generating some dashboards on how a city is doing on safety, security, traffic violation. What kind of numbers are shown in that? What are the metrics that cities track?
So for enforcement piece, we have very detailed metrics, which is number of tickets generated every day, number of tickets generated by an operator, taluk wise, district wise, all that data is available. How many are paid because it's integrated to NIC. So we send this data to NIC for generating the ticket. Now NIC updates back how much people have paid the challan. So you have the data for the revenue collected, revenue pending, all the dashboard is there.
Okay, okay. And for safe city, what kind of analytics do you,
So it
or
would
what kind of
be
metrics do cities track?
So it'll be typically like how many cameras are up, how many cameras are down. Uh,
Okay.
what kind of alarms have you got for, let's say, chain snatching or for a unusual event, so to say. So that matrix is tracked. What is the response you have done? So command centers, command control software will essentially have a next step for that. So if you get a fire, as I said, what do you do that? So there is, let's say, some logic to communicate to the ambulance, to the fire brigade, and things to kind of act on it. So all the record was kept. What happened. The case is closed. So there is a trail of that. Who did the trail is also captured. So you have an end-to-end accountability in the system where a event is detected, what happened, and the closure. That's also mapped in the dashboard.
So you power response management also.
We don't do that. There are command control systems or PSIM systems who do that. We essentially do our part. So the enforcement or the analytics is what we do. But there is a larger thing to it. For example, there is a dial 100 attached to the response system. So dial 100 is essentially the radio communication between the command center and the PCR. So that is not done by us. So typically, you have command control softwares who have expertise in plugging these multiple sensors into their system and have a SOP built around all of this.
And these softwares are again like Indian startups
Yeah,
provided by
I think
NIC.
now they're primarily Indian. So earlier, there are some foreign companies also, but I think from this 100% foreign company has now dipped to maybe 20-30% foreign company and 70% are Indian software. They're customizable. Every city, state would require a lot of changes. So Indian agile startups have actually picked up that space very well.
Okay. Uh, there is like you gave the example of London, and I remember watching at least two different movies which had like this very dystopian view of a city where there is so much surveillance and everybody like that big brother is watching kind of a thing. And in China also that there is that province, I think Xinjiang or something like that, where they have the extremely high amount of surveillance happening. So, what is your take on like cities going to that extreme level of surveillance?
I think some surveillance is definitely required for safety security. Uh, China is an extreme case of surveillance. I mean, it's like if you go to China, you see cameras everywhere. Uh, I think it depends on how you use these cameras. So if you're just using it for loitering applications, chalaning applications, because you have the data, right? So it can be misused. Now it can also be used to track someone theoretically. I mean, somebody can track you where you're going, why you're going. You're going to this restaurant, then going to this. So in India, there are rules to do that. I mean, you need to get some kind of
Warrant or something.
yeah. Yeah, you need some kind of a court summon to actually monitor someone. I mean,
Okay.
but I mean, it still can be misused. I mean, it's like your cell phone data, right? So if somebody has to track your cell phone, which they would do for criminals, so then you need some kind of a formal process for that. So till the time a formal process is laid down and somebody kind of judges whether this person should be really tracked because of the background which the police provides to the judge or to the magistrate or someone, uh, I think it's fine. But if these are misused, then they can have a very negative impact.
Mm. Okay. I remember reading about this company which is selling a software to police forces in the US, where they have scraped social media profiles of people, and they will tell the police department the name of anybody who's on camera, like not necessarily matched against a criminal database, but just anybody. And because they have scraped a lot of data from the web, like from Facebook profiles and Instagram and all of these places, so they are able to match a camera image with the social profile and give back a name and things like that. Is that like an interesting business line for you? Like,
So, I mean, we're not doing that right now. We're not looking at social media and things. But I know there are companies who are in that space where essentially they would look at, I mean, for example, if somebody was to track me, then what I'm doing on the social media, where was I? I was in London on this day, China on this day, I was in Gurgaon on that day. I mean, of course, it depends on the frequency of posting also. But not just that, you can look at social media, you can look at web, you can look at live cameras, and you can actually connect the dots across for a person using these technologies, because essentially you require face recognition. So any picture I have either on social media or on a live camera or anywhere, if it is being centrally available to everyone, then you can actually track a person.
so you don't intend to offer this because your customers would be ready to buy it, right? If you tell a police department that anybody who's captured on camera, I can tell you the person's name by comparing that image against social records.
So I think there are companies who are already doing it. In fact, some of our collaborators who are doing it. So,
Okay.
but there's a limited market for that. Our markets are more, I would say, private in nature. But yeah, I mean, technology stack wise, we can actually do that. But I know of companies who do that, and we collaborate with them
Mm.
to kind of give them our data, uh, and then
Okay.
essentially build that so-called monitoring layer on top.
Mm-hmm. Probably things like, say, writing and like stuff like that, where you need not necessarily have hardened criminals there, but you may want to identify who all are there, those kind of use
So these systems
cases.
are already there. So you have a face recognition system which matches against a petty criminal list or a hardened criminal. I mean, they're all databases available
Mm.
at state level, central level. So it's all being mapped, and
Okay.
and
Okay.
I mean, how effective is that is something which is to be seen, because for these systems to work, everything has to work seamlessly. The camera has to be good, the network has to be good, your software has to be good, your server has to be good. So all that is there, and it works with varying degrees of efficiency. Sorry, it works with varying degrees of efficiency depending on the state infrastructure.
Okay. How has there is like ChatGPT and Gemini and all these large language models, multimodal large language models. Have they uh, has there been some sort of a positive or negative impact of these technologies on your business?
So we are essentially into imaging systems. So there are a lot of generative AI models for images, which we use for let's say training. So AI actually, one of the, I would say, negatives is that you need a lot of data for training a use case. So either you can collect that data online, which is always limited available, or you can do synthetic data generation. Essentially, create scenarios in software where you get multiple angles or views or faces in that view or in that event. So we use a lot of generative AI models for synthetic data generation.
Training
Yeah,
data.
training data generation.
Okay. Okay. Uh, why can't you use the data which all your customers are generating? I guess you already have like tons of data which you can use for training, right? Like,
No, so that data does not belong to us. It actually belongs to the police, and essentially, whenever we are training a data based on that data, it's with their permission only. But once the
okay.
systems are deployed, we don't have access to that data. I mean, I don't have a feed coming into my servers of everybody,
Mm.
and that may be actually very detrimental. Also, that should not be done. So I don't have a like a free access to use that data.
Okay, okay. Got it. Okay. But does this increase the ease with which other companies can replicate what you have built? Like, say you have built facial recognition software, optical, like license plate readers, all of these things would be a lot easier to build today, right? So would it increase your competitors' capabilities?
No, so if they have a right to that data, so data is a very, very critical thing for any AI model training, for example. So, yeah, if people have access to that data more freely, they will be able to develop the systems better. But having said that, all our systems are primarily deployed at a secure location, a command center or a traffic center, and things like that. So, I mean, they have equal barriers as we have. I mean, rather to improve, we still get access to some data, right? Which the police gives us. But I don't think they give a free access to anyone who wants to improve a system and develop a model.
Okay. So you're saying, irrespective of the machine learning technology, the training data is the constraint, and you still have an edge there in terms of access to better training data than somebody who's entering the field relatively new.
Yeah, so of course. So I mean, we have multiple systems deployed, and with the permission of the user, we do get access to some data to improve the system. So if my accuracy is, let's say,
Got it.
70%, how do I improve it to
Hmm.
80 or 90? I have to use that data to train and improve the
Right.
accuracy. So yeah.
Hmm. Okay. Uh, what's your advice to founders on bootstrapping it? You have bootstrapped to probably you'll be like 200 crore plus kind of a business this year, uh, with no or very minimal external funding. So what advice would you like to share based on your own journey?
I think funding is something which everybody should not take it as a feather in the cap. It's actually a liability. I mean, any money you raise, whether it's equity or debt or anything, is a liability. You have to pay back to investors. So any business which can potentially run on its own is always a better business because you don't have a liability. But having said that, there are some businesses who cannot run in a bootstrap mode. So we were a B2B technology provider. So even if I had 100 crores, I could not have built more systems faster. But if it's a e-commerce startup or a uh, or a technology which requires a lot of capital first, like let's say somebody wants to develop a chat GPT in India, so they would need capital. They would need 20 PhDs in AI. You can't bootstrap that model. So it depends on the need of the business. But any capital, I would request everybody to take it as a liability. And announcements of raising money are actually, I would think it's not a proud feeling to have, right? I mean, you have raised money because you don't have it. So first of all,
Right.
but having said that, if the business requires money, you should raise it. But that should not be the goal of a business. The goal of a business is to generate revenue and profits, but not raise money. Raising money is like a process. I mean, you hire people, you raise money, you take bank credit. It's the process, right? But when people started glorifying funding and valuations, that's actually a very, very dangerous, because it attracts a lot of youngsters to raise money. So I speak to a lot of people, and some proposals come forward. We do angel funding up here and there. So their target is to raise money. I said that should not be a target. The target is to run a business. Generate revenue, generate profit is a target. Raising money is just a process. You do it if you require it. If you don't need it, you don't take it.
What kind of businesses do you fund?
So these are
Like
small,
hardware?
I would say, tech startups, which are essentially filling some pieces of the business we are not doing. And some young
Okay.
chaps. See, we must believe that the next generation is smarter than the last one. So there are kids out of these college who actually have a better access to thoughts and innovation and creativity, which any business which is 10 years old may not have, or have it in limited quantity. So we're looking at investing in those businesses.
Okay, fascinating. What's your headcount today?
So we're about 450 people now.
How many of these are in manufacturing? You manufacture like extensive manufacturing, or is it more of assembling that you do?
So we are primarily an assembler, and manufacturing is done for security screening products like under vehicle scanner, X-ray package, ETD, explosive detector. The traffic and the analytics is by and large pure software now. So there's no manufacturing. We do manufacture some parts, and we do assemble most of the parts. So we have a partner ecosystem, a vendor ecosystem, which supplies us, let's say, sheet metal boxes required for X-ray tunnels, plates for under vehicle scanning systems. We don't do that in-house. There are some key technologies in manufacturing we do in-house. So we're about 70 people in manufacturing. So that's just to give you a sense of where we are.
Okay, not too large. Most people are not in
Yeah.
manufacturing. Like, okay, okay. So, what have you learned about managing people, about building a great team?
Uh, I think, uh, as I said, the first thing you have to understand is what you're good at and what you're not good at. And then you go find experts in other areas. So that's something which uh, we have tried to do. I will not say that we are successful always, but we have tried to do that. I think giving a sense of purpose to everyone is very important because a smart guy can get a job anywhere and he can get a job today and he can get a raise of 20-30% again. So we must understand what keeps them motivated. So we have, let's say, hired a research team, a couple of PhDs. Now, building a product is something which is exciting to them, but they also need more, I would say, mind fodder, so to say. So we encourage people to go to research conferences, visit exhibitions, and expose. And one of our founders, Professor Balakrishnan, actually gave us an idea that we should have a learning and development budget embedded in the salary component. So we have 5% of the CTC as learning and development, which is only paid on reimbursement, which means you have to actually use that and then get it reimbursed. It could be a course you want to do, an MBA you want to do. Because we have seen is that, whatever salary you get, you end up making your lifestyle and consume that salary. So even if you get 8,000 rupees, you spend it, you get 4 lakhs, you spend it in a month. And at the end of the month, you have very little money left in your bank. So not many people focus on learning. They want to do it, but essentially the rigors of life and the family and other things kind of take over. So we mandated a 5% of the CTC as L&D, which will be only reimbursed when you do a certain kind of thing, and we are flexible on that. There's some people who are attending conferences in the US or Europe. They want to learn their skill, presenting paper, for example. We encourage that. Somebody wants to do an MBA, somebody wants to do a 5-year IIM Ahmedabad course on strategic management. We encourage that. So as part of that budget, you can actually use that. So we found that initially 2 years, a lot of people didn't use it, and then now gradually, they see the value of that because they see their colleague doing an MBA which they could not do, and now they've started thinking about it. So I think ensuring that they have a larger purpose is very important. Ensuring they're always learning is always important. Some people come to me and saying, you're making them do an MBA, he will leave, he'll get a better job. कोई नहीं याद तो रखेगा सारी उम्र यार और कुछ नहीं. So that's also important, right? Yeah, everything is not about money in life.
How do you handle things like, say, uh, s- incentivization, who gets what kind of performance linked incentives, and some of these things are fairly tricky to figure out. How do you do some of those things?
So, I mean, we do rely on the project leads and their managers to take a call. And then eventually at the end of the year, everything gets compiled and we also take a call on that. It's a tricky problem. There is no scientific
What
logic to it.
percentage of the salary is like
Yeah, it's a.
variable, and typically,
Sorry, can you repeat?
what percentage of salary is variable?
So it depends on the profile. For sales, it may be even as high as 30-35%. For tech, it may be 5 to 10% because there are not many roles you can link to a milestone, so to say. We have tried to objectivize this to the extent possible, but it varies from 5 to 30% depending on the profiles.
And do you believe in discipline? Like, say, everyone should clock in on time, or do you believe in complete freedom, that give people freedom and they will on their own do their best work? In that spectrum, where are you?
So something called flexible discipline, which is very important.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
for example, our
What is
clocking
that?
time starts from 8:30 to 11. So you can come anywhere
Okay.
between 8:30, but you have to come by 11. I mean, you can't like come at
Got
2.
it. Hmm.
And then you have to clock at least 8.5, 9 hours in the company. So there is a flexibility to be provided to take care of the daily course because there are people who have, let's say, kids to be dropped and things like that. So we realize that. So there is a flexible discipline, as we call it, we have.
So, but say, why track if they are doing 8 hours or not? Why not just track that, are they delivering on the goals? it doesn't matter if they do it in 8 hours or 12 hours or 7 hours.
So I think we started with that philosophy. But when you have an organization which has multitude of roles, so we have a production staff, we have an installation engineer, we have a normal engineer, we have a research engineer, we have a sales guy, we have a service guy, we have admin, we have operations. So I think for IT companies, for example, it's easier to follow a standard because you have people at the same level. So you can apply work from home for everyone, and you know how to measure their performance because they have to code a certain way and things like that. But for us, we believe that the policy should be uniform across the organizations. Now, the production staff is disadvantaged of working from home because you cannot work from home in production, right? So
Yeah.
that's the reason we have to have some discipline at all the levels. Now, every company can have their different approach. So we stopped the work from home after COVID very soon, but we have a small work from home policy where people can take certain days work from home on certain conditions. But then everybody can take that. So that's the goal. There is no perfect answer to this flexibility problem, but every organization kind of measures that, and we believe that majority would accept it. There will always be a small minority who feels that they can get more freedom. They should get more freedom. They're more ownership driven.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Okay. What percentage of your revenue do you spend on demand generation? So, like demand generation could be like, say, sponsoring an event or advertising or whatever, like, all these marketing events, kind of activities to generate more business. So, how much do you spend and what do you spend it on? What have you seen that gives you good results?
so I mean, if you leave the enterprise analytics aside for a because that's a budding business and may require a different approach in marketing. All our businesses are B2B businesses, where the knock on the door is more important. The
Okay.
events we do are essentially trade shows. We do at least six, seven exhibitions in a year in India and outside. But essentially, the money spent on travel of sales is very, very critical because you don't order an X-ray baggage machine online, right? Like you order food.
Yeah, right.
So it's
Okay.
the feel and touch. Even if the person sends a query, he would want somebody to come and meet them and give a presentation. So knock on the door is something we spend most on. But the trade shows and the social media and the digital inquiry generation kind of adds to that. But eventually, any of our product is not sold by somebody sending a query and we shipping the product. So it requires a human
Do
touch.
you spend on online ads? Like, is that of any
Uh,
use?
Very little, honestly, but we rather spend more on the SEO and things like that to ensure that if somebody is
Okay.
wanting an extra baggage machine, we should get the inquiry. So that's
Mm.
more important
Okay.
spending for us than. Uh,
Mm.
I mean, we do spend on AdWords, just keep us up on the Google thing
Mm.
for the keywords we
Yeah.
have.
Do you also have to spend on like a consultant who will open doors in
So
government,
sometime we have
especially
done, like
because
in defense, for example, we had a very senior major general, helping us to kind of even telling the process on how do we sell to defense. Uh, we
okay,
had higher aviation experts in the past. So need based, I think we do hire these consultants.
okay. So is their role know-how or is their role relationships that open that give you a foot in the door?
So more know-how, but there's part relations also. Because
Okay.
let's say defense, for example, is also a very wide sector. I mean, somebody who has retired as a major
Mm.
general may have only certain areas he has operated in, but he would know the process at least across army. So
Mm.
mostly about the process and partly about the connects.
Okay, got it. Okay, all right. So I'm done with my questions. Do you think there is a question I should have asked you? What's a question you wish that I had asked you?
So that's one area we actually operate is aviation. We didn't touch on that. So I mean, smart city, safe city, enterprise analytics, we are doing well. So we are also now present at 90 airports in India. So we are the largest uh, airport
For baggage
for
scanning.
baggage scanning company deployed in the country. Incidentally, last year that was actually the largest business we had. We had close to about 80 crores from aviation sales. So that's one area
Wow.
which we intend to focus on. And the other products we're building in security screening are also aviation linked and oriented. I mean, of course, there'll be a market outside that, but maybe after aviation has picked up those products. So that's another area which we are very, very highly focused on. And I think we feel very proud when we see a Vehant packet scanner at an airport. somebody sending us a picture of friend, ex colleagues, know us. Feel very proud developing these technologies and products in India.
I will keep my eyes open next time I'm crossing an
Sure,
airport
sure.
in India to
Yeah.
check if there is a Vihant logo on the baggage scanner. This would be like a sale to the airport or to the security agency. I think I forget the name of that agency. There's a paramilitary
Yeah, so
agency which
CISF
manages
actually. So
security
there
in
are
Delhi.
three pillars to this
CISF.
process.
Yeah.
One is a regulator, which is Bureau of Civil Aviation Control, Bureau of Civil
Okay.
Aviation Security, which is actually a regulator who defines the minimum specifications of a product to be sold, and then certifies each of these installations eventually. Then there is an airport operator, which is Airport Authority of India or GMR or Adani Airports or Cochin Airport. These are individual airport operators. And then you have the CISF, which is a user of the equipment. Because in airports, CISF is the mandatory operator for these devices. And so there are three different customer sets we have. And a sale in an airport happens when you satisfy all three of them. So you have the regulator, which you have to match the minimum standards, then you have the operator who has to buy and spend money, and then you have the user who actually use the machine. So uh, i mean uh, so it was a challenge us entering that market because they're all foreign dominated. People are used to seeing a different image, so to say, or different brand or different way of operating the machine. And when we build a product, of course we try to be similar, but we can't match exact all the things. So getting an acceptance in airports took time. It almost took us 3 years to get it certified. BCS has its own process. Operators are worried about the profitability and long-term serviceability of the product. CSF wants to ensure that they don't miss out anything, and they do a fairly good job at Indian airports. I mean, I'm rather proud to say that the kind of security checks we go through in Indian airports on a baggage scanner, at least, is really very good, even by global standards. Uh, so some regulations are overdone, but it's good for security. Better to be more cautious than.
Fascinating. Thank you so much for your time, Kapil.
Sure.
I really enjoyed our conversation.
Okay, Akshay. Thanks a lot. I hope you got whatever you wanted.